Well, I think you always start with the need. You know, the short version is what, and it's always women. They're smarter than us, they're better than us. That's why scripture wisdom is always feminine. And it was a lady doctor, Dr. Audrey Evans, a world-class oncologist. And she said, do you know what happens when I tell a family their child has leukemia? And she said, they don't hear one word I say. I've just ruined their family. The sick child gets all the emphasis. The husbands leave, 75% divorce rate. She said, and people don't know what to do. And she actually wanted to buy a YMCA, but being Irish and Catholic, I said, no, you need a house. This is Philadelphia. We're a neighborhood society. My mother got sick, somebody else made the chicken soup, didn't sing how great I are. We were poor but rich. You need a house. And then she said, well, get us a house. Now you go back to the rosaries. And I wish I hadn't said that. And I called a brother, a Lunsman. I called a guy named Don Tuckerman. I said, what's your next promotion? He said, Mary, St. Patrick's Day, Shamrock Shakes. I said, Irish guy calls Jewish guy, green milkshakes, green money. We have one good player. I said, if he did a commercial, could we get this house? You always had to talk to the Italian guys. So Ed Renzi, he later became President of McDonald's. So it was FedEx North. He called me back and he said, Jim Murray, this house you want to build. If we give you all the money from the Shamrock Shakes, can we call it the Ronald McDonald House? Now, they taught me at Villanova. I said, you give me all the money and call it the Hamburger House. I don't care what you do. I didn't realize God's hand was in that. But the short version is, there are so many good people in the world. And there was such a need. And you did not have to explain house or home. It's all the things Katie's talking about with poverty. You're taking the lowest level of poverty if one of your kids gets a death notice, or in those days it was diagnosis. Candace knows that, she's in that field. So with a lot of prayer and a lot of good people, and then the power to use a huge marketing company like Mickey D's and a sports team gave you instant communication, instant way of getting the message out. So was I attacked for it? Yeah. I mean, we had a bad football team. It's a sorrowful mystery, so we'll win a couple games a year, you know. And our emphasis. But Leonard Toews, who was a real different guy, one of the first Jewish guys to go to Notre Dame. And he had a lot of addictions. Number one was generosity. And Ray Kroc, the guy who founded McDonald's when he was 54, give something back to the community. Don't just be a taker. All the things Art Mahan and the monks and every teacher I had here. So actually the planets lined up really great. But you still can't underestimate. And if there's a need, and why arts and science? You know, I'm in wonderment. I'm sitting here, and I'm not just being Irish to say with these three people. And you say, you know what? Your dreams are possible. You know, if you really have a need, you give it to God and have some trust, and then you get more good people involved. I mean, I never get used to it. I mean, I think the assets of McDonald's charities now is over $2 billion. Now, you know, you can do the economics, you can do Newsweek's made the business school, whatever it is. You can't put limits on prayer and people's goodness. And unfortunately or fortunately, I've been in the media business all my life. News is defined as negative or bad. And, you know, if there's good news, you know, I see it every day. I am blessed. So, and I'm still learning. When you talked about master's degrees, when you go to get in this field, as I said, it's a limited field. It's grown exponentially, sports marketing, sports communication. I've told every kid that comes to see me, because I will see everybody, because nobody would see me, and I tell them to get their masters. I said, go get your masters. And, you know, so we're working for the big master, but get your masters. Say your prayers and get more educated.
Mr. Murray, I had a question about sports in particular. We've lived in a time where I imagine sports in the public eye, or maybe even the academic eye, has taken a bit of a beating in the light of steroid scandals and questions about concussions in sports and injuries. And yet my own experience with sports is nothing but joy, friendship, community, and something I think that we really have to question, particularly in light of new healthcare laws, physical health. The benefits of sports to people's ability to stay healthy. You know, how is sports going to move forward in your
once again, because it's almost overcovered, now I've lived my whole life in sports. And I have all the bad one-liners that just because I'm shaped like a football, I don't think the world is. But when I sit next to a beautiful woman named James, I immediately think of Larry James, who was here when I was a sports information guy. And I think of a guy like Jumbo Elliott, who taught this guy and was one of the great teachers. Those track kids all realized their full potential, as you say, not just health. Kids who weren't any good came here because the program was so excellent. I remember Larry James winning the 5th relay at the Penn Relays, sitting next to Jumbo. And Larry James later went on and became the athletic director at Stockton University. And I could go on and on and on. The picture outside my office was Ron Delaney kneeling in prayer at the 1,500 meters gold medal in Melbourne, Australia, and really dominating sports in his country. But I agree with you. These steroids, the things that, I've been blessed with every kind of sports story. I mean, I used to negotiate the contracts. The agents would all start the same way. Jimmy, it's not the money. And I would say that it's the cash. That's even before Jerry Maguire. I mean, the exponential growth of salaries in sports. You know, it's an amazing thing. And especially if you look at how out of kilter society is right now. People wanting to get a job, like Katie said. Just want to get a job, the World Bank. So I think you can find anything you want in sports, the good stories. There's a beautiful lady who's, I know she's still on the board here. We made her the first woman sports information director, Rosa Caddy. She worked for ESPN. She was one of the first employees of ESPN. I remember she went from here to Brown, and she called me and she said, there's this new cable company. Getty owns it. It's called ESPN. What should I do? I said, well, if you play Monopoly, do not stop at go direct to New York. And now she is, but they have a series 30-30, a depthful sports series. So you're right. I'm the worst person to ask about physical health, as I said, you know. But I also am a man who's seen people's lives change forever with sports. And you can see it, whether it's the Chilean miner who just finished the marathon in New York. I mean, there's no story like that. It's probably one of the great stories ever to me that the technology could actually bring us to the pit of that place. Watch the diversity of all the world work together, whether it was World Bank, whether it was, I love Drexel, I'm a big Drexel guy, because they had a co-op program. I think the ultimate master's or PhD is living it. And when you look at all the good things in our society it took to get those men out of that place. But if you don't dwell on it, you know, it's what you do afterwards, what you think about. So your questions, I don't think there's a small answer. The worst part of the steroids thing was lying. You know, taking steroids, you know, there's all kinds of guys trying to get an edge. I'm crushed. I love Lance Armstrong. I love Lance Armstrong for what he's done in cancer research. And you know, to me, it's like, I'll end with 2 quotes. In John's Gospel, it says, the truth shall set you free. And not so saintly Jack Nicholson, you can't handle the truth. I mean, just tell people the truth. Whether they can handle it or they can't handle it. Just tell them the truth. And then, you know, the truth is, I'm worried about my grandson playing sports with the concussions and all that. I was in the Eagles locker room giving a talk Saturday night. The concussion sign was the biggest thing in the room, and, you know, for the guys. So where's it going? But you know what? They're good stories. You know, Field of Dreams. 10 people told me to see Secretary at the Disney store. We had a kid named Vince Papali, St. Joe's. I'll even say the name out loud. You know, never played football. You know, movie Invincible. So there are a lot of great sports stories. And made me cry just seeing her last name here, because Larry James was one of the superstars, not just as a runner, but as a person. Long answer, short question, sorry.
Great answer. Ed?
For doctoral candidate Robertson James, I tend to miss the first half of the presentations. Could I ask you, as sort of transporting yourself back to biology major and looking, you graduated a little bit before Katie, but you could imagine yourself with this, and you were a hippie, Katie. Had all the clothes, but as a biology major,
think I did as a biology major. I definitely, was interested. I knew at that point in time that I was interested in health. And of course, growing up saying you're interested in health, most people say, oh, you want to be a doctor or a nurse. And so I tended to get that. And I was interested in health. I was very interested in sciences, and that was one thing I felt very comfortable in. But I wasn't sold on the idea that I wanted to be a medical doctor. And I knew that I was interested in helping people and the health field and science. I was excited about, but there was also this other side of it. There was the people part of it, the humanities, the human condition part of it, and how to put that together. Now, I didn't learn until later that there was a whole field, and public health was, where I landed. And, at that time, I didn't know of, public health as the field, but I think the arts and sciences that really helped me to marry the two in undergraduate, and then to later on, to go on to find the field and, to get the master's in public health, and now pursuing my doctorate in that. And I loved, working in that area.
Yeah, and now that we're moving within undergraduate to a new curriculum where you would have more options and fewer core requirements, do you think you would be pretty much similarly disposed to do the liberal arts courses when you don't got to?
It's an interesting question. I think on some level, definitely. I think all of the options and diversity of courses, they were all, were always very appealing. I think the thing that I definitely encourage students is as far as really understanding. I remember being undergraduate in all the writing intensive courses and, thinking about them. And I definitely encourage people all the time to really do them. I think you never know how you're going to use things in life, but I'm definitely very, very appreciative of those courses. So I think, definitely the diversity of courses, always appealing. I think having courses where students really need to hone in on those skills are very beneficial, and helping them to understand why those skills are important no matter what field or area you're gonna land in.
George.
I'm always amazed about the Villanova, the power of the Villanova connection. And there's been many times in my life that I've felt that power. And I'm wondering, as panelists, when were specific moments where you felt that Villanova alliance or connection that either made you a better person or furthered your career? So, the whole panel.
Well, I'd go back to the A's. I see Father Fitzgerald's come here. The Augustinians have been the relay team of my life. And some of the great Augustinians, I think. One of my most incredible moments in sports was going to Father Peter's installation. And here were all the pomp and circumstance, the robes, the other presidents of all the other universities. And at the moment in the graduation, when he came off the stage, his mom was there, and he knelt down. And I think that's where we see Villanova, is our roots. My parents didn't go to college. I think sometimes as we try to better, that we have to go back to the simplistic truth of what the three things on the logo say, of being one, and being loving, and being truthful. I just think, I've had many Villanova connections. You want some specifics in the diversity of living in California, living in the South, living in sports. But it's not just sports connections. It's people you meet along the way who are, hey, I went there too. And you're immediately friends. Gary has it every day in his life. I think you're letting something go by if you find out somebody went to Villanova. Probably the toughest thing for me, because I'm 60 class, that was 50 years ago when we came here. And the toughest part of that whole weekend for me was a list of all the guys who've gone home. And one of my buddies was in the CIA. He was a great guy. And I did the Irish thing. I procrastinated about seeing him in Michigan. And I couldn't believe he was on that list. The guy who's the president of my class has a bench out there. His name's Ray Rafferty. He was a lawyer. Really one of my best friends. There's a great quote from St. John Newman on it. It says, there's nothing that's going to happen today that you and I can't handle together. And if you meet another Villanova, there's nothing you can do that you can't handle together, because he went to the school, no matter how many degrees he had, or how far he went there.
I have a perspective on this. I have two Villanova moments. One happened 45 years ago, and that was the special bond that developed between me and my thesis director. He had come the same year as I had, and this program at the time was quite young. I think I was in the second class for the Master's of Science degree. And so he didn't have a lot of thesis students. In fact, I think I was his only one. So I had access to him all the time, and that just doesn't happen in very many places. And the second Villanova moment happened about 2 hours ago, when another one of my professors from 45 years ago came to my talk with a folder. And in the folder, he had my final exam in perception from 45 years ago. And I couldn't believe that. I have it, actually, I got it. It'll take me a year to read it. I'm afraid of what I wrote. But those are the kinds of things that I don't think happen very many places. And it's what makes Villanova, continues to make Villanova special for me.
When I first left Villanova, I taught middle school for a few years in Philadelphia. And I taught at a school that I guess would be considered an underserved school. And it was sort of the school was an experiment basically to try to provide a private education of sorts to a group of kids that were from the local projects and the local area. And so a lot of what I brought as a science teacher there, they didn't have a lot of resources. And so, basically you had what you brought with you. And so I was, of course, a very zealous teacher right out of school, and I'm going to change the world, and I'm going to do all this with the students, and quickly learning what I could do, and really taking a lot on. And I had the opportunity to start a lot of programs there, and really to come back to Villanova and to see what could be done. And I remember the biology department donated microscopes and just did a phenomenal amount of things and helped me to really build a program there and give the students an experience that they had never had before, give the school an experience that they had never had before. And ultimately to help believe that these children, they could learn and they could excel and they could be exposed to things. And I remember even bringing them here to Villanova so that they could get out and they could, step foot on a college campus and know that that was possible for them, and that, that was what I wanted I wanted them to have that in their vision, to know that, that's where we were going and that this was really possible. And Villanova, just as always, I always remember that, and I see some of the students, I run into them now, and, they're in college now, and, it's awesome just to know, and they remember parents I run into, and they still remember, that experience and that excitement that their students had for learning.
Wow. I haven't been out of Villanova very long, but I probably would echo a lot of what everybody's saying, particularly Jim. Yeah, I don't know too much if I've had very many wow moments yet, mostly because actually everywhere I go, there's someone from Villanova, so it's never anything that's terribly startling to me. Even when I was studying abroad, or studying for my master's, I did that in London. The same year that I was there was a kid named Bruce O'Neill, who I had sociology class with 3 years ago, and dated one of my friends. Jane was like passing through town, and I'd have lunch with her. Come back, and I'm living in DC, and actually he just stepped out, but there's a U2 concert, and I'm like, oh, get a phone call from Tom Logan. He's at the U2 concert too. Here we go. We're going to see U2 together. And that's happened, and I've lived not in too many places, but enough places that it's just so normal for me to be around Villanova, and so strange that it's normal, if That makes it awesome. I'm living in DC now, and I was blown away. I was saying to Maureen, I wouldn't have had to make new friends. I wouldn't have needed to. Wouldn't have needed to be social with coworkers or meet my neighbors. There are so many Villanova people there. So I guess I haven't had that wow moment yet because I'm still around so many Villanovans.
Okay, well, we are going to have a reception up in the President's Lounge, Bob, is that right?
I think actually, you said.
Oh, it's back there? Okay, fine. We invite all of you to enjoy the refreshments outside the cinema. As I mentioned in the beginning, we have our medallion dinner tomorrow night, at which time these four wonderful people will be presented with the college's Alumni Medallion, and will add their name to the list of many, many notable people. And so I think you can appreciate just from their comments and their stories how wonderful they are as far as representing our university. And if we can continue to do this each and every year, I think that our college can always be proud of the efforts they put forth to educate these wonderful people. And I think one more thing. I think their lives also speak to our faculty, who have been the people, so to speak, on the ground with them every day. And I'm sure all of you realize that nothing gets done at any university, no university in the world, without the faculty. Never happens. And so their lives are a testimony to our wonderful faculty, and we need to keep that in mind as well. So,